So normally, governments get thrown out when unemployment rises. Right now, up until recently, the unemployment rate's been strong. Employment's been strong in America, which is the reason why so many families have actually been able to survive these big price increases.
Yes. Again, I got issues with that. The way we calculate that, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has actually 6 different unemployment numbers. A U1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We use the U3, which is probably the worst one, because let's say you just get so disgruntled, you get out of the labor force. You're not counted as unemployed. We have 8 million men who have dropped out of the labor force. They're humans, they're alive, they need to eat, they need shelter, they need love. They want responsibility, so they're not counted. So it's a facade of how strong our labor market is. It really is not as strong as the U3 numbers suggest.
So the one thing that gets me is that many working class Americans have gravitated to Donald Trump. They would normally be Democrats until the cows come home. So why is that? What is the thing, that, especially with men in particular, black men, what is it, the fact that they have suddenly gravitated towards Donald Trump?
We've had an official changing of the guard, to your point, and the Democrat Party is now the party of the 1% and the educated elite. I mean, think about this. Biden-Harris wanted to give college grads up to $1.4 trillion. Now, there's nothing better on the planet Earth than to be a graduate from a major U.S. college. You live better than everyone in the entire planet. In this country, you make $3 to $4 million more than a high school grad. You live longer, you live with less violence, and your kids grow up with a better life. Why would a cab driver have to give his paycheck, part of his paycheck, to a PhD who's going to make $5 million more in his lifetime? So we've had an official changing of the guard. And where it comes to policy and these sort of things, it boggles the mind, really, and all of the effort that has been taken in the last 4 years to appease and to help people who don't need it, whereas people who do need it are really struggling. And I think people on Main Street see it and feel it.
So is that the reason why you think that this election becomes pivotal to the future of America's economy, to the future of stock markets and investment markets, and indeed to the future of ordinary Americans and their lifestyle into the future?
Well, if we were to go with similar policies, again, the focus would be on giving semiconductors money. And I understand we want more semiconductor manufacturing in this country, but do we really need to give the richest companies in the world money, taxpayer money? Right. I mean, they let a food stamp program that was put in place during the COVID. They let it expire. I didn't hear one Democrat rail against it. I mean, it's heartbreaking, a food stamp program. And so I think the middle class will continue to drift. And you add on the layer of where we're going, right, with this fourth industrial revolution. The old skill set, when I was growing up, and even before I was born, but right around that time, we had what we called the Great Migration. Black Americans leaving the South, moving north, and getting good jobs on assembly lines, working at the auto plant. They made good money. They bought a house. They put their kids through college. Same thing with other people, other races, and those jobs are fading. Now, the good news is you don't necessarily need a 4-year degree in this AI world, but you can't do it with just a high school degree either.
Let me ask you about AI, because that's that is considered to be the next revolution, the next great boom that's coming. That happens under a Trump administration, it happens under a Kamala Harris administration. Why would there be fundamentally a difference, in your opinion, compared with which leader eventually runs as the President of the United States?
AI we are in the fourth industrial revolution. It's already begun. There's no doubt about it. And there'll be displacements. I'm a natural Luddite. If I was around when they had the first weaving machines, I would have been out there with net. I'd have been breaking those weaving machines, right? They're going to take our jobs. I naturally gravitate toward that, but I'm also a student of history, so I know that ultimately every one of these industrial revolutions led to better lives for people, more jobs, and maybe AI does the same. Though, from what I understand and what I've researched, is that there's going to be a massive gulf, right, between the people who lose their jobs to AI and then the 60% of jobs that don't exist at this very moment 10 to 15 years from now. And what happens to these people between now and then? And that's a big, big question mark. And again, who do you feel confident about in terms of protecting these people? I think most average folks, again, going back to that cab driver, feels like, well, maybe it will be Trump. And if you follow the money, most of the money, corporate America money, billionaire money, it's gravitated to Kamala Harris.
I was going to ask you about the actual markets themselves, as to what the markets are saying right now is the outcome of this election.
The markets for the last few weeks have hit the so-called Trump trade. Now, there's a lot of things that represent that. The strong dollar has represented the Trump trade. Bond yields going higher has represented the Trump trade. Technology stocks going higher. In this instance, technology, not just AI, but technology in the sense that we wouldn't have a war with them. There's always saber rattling. The current administration is always talking about breaking them up and that sort of thing. So those are all part of the so-called Trump trade. Bitcoin has become a big-time Trump trade. Those have made huge, massive moves. It took a little bit of a hiccup in the last 3 or 4 days, but overall, since the beginning of summer, those trades are still higher. So the markets are suggesting that Trump will win.
So just a final one for you. I mean, this election is tight. The differences in the two candidates are stark. So that really does say something about the future of America, whoever wins.
It does. It does. And it also says that at some point, we need a unifier. At some point, we have to have someone who unifies this country. You know, I talked about our economy and the stock market coming into this year, coming into the last couple of years as the roaring 20s, a redux of that. And the parallels are pretty intriguing. You had Spanish flu, we had COVID. You had the end of a world war, we had the war on terror. They had a massive recession. We started with a massive recession. But I'm beginning it's going to be more like the Gilded Age. And I'm still doing work on this. But the Gilded Age was fascinating because you had the so-called robber barons, so Carnegie, Rockefeller, those guys. These days we have Elon Musk, and household names who are multi-billionaires.
Jeff Bezos, right, whatever it might be, yeah.
You've got the characters, you've got the Industrial Revolution, and you have the commercialism, right? That leading up to the 1893 Chicago World's Fair was the introduction of consumerism to the world. Right? It's the first time we had extra money to go on a Ferris wheel, that kind of stuff. But the thing that bothers me is history usually goes in like a clock. Like we figure, okay, history repeats itself. Never, there's all nuances, right? But I feel like this time consider this the Gilded Age. We're not going this way in this clock. I feel like we're going this way. So instead of labor doing better, workers doing better, the real unifying thing is the billionaires, the Industrial Revolution, but the average person isn't going to benefit that I see right now. I feel like they're going the opposite way. And if we don't figure out a way to reverse that, our country is in a lot of trouble.
I'll tell you what, Charles Payne, great to chat to you today. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.